Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I am super excited and grateful that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. And today on the podcast, we are doing a solo episode. And over the last year, we haven't had that many solo episodes because I did so much backlogging of episodes before I went on maternity leave. And then things have just been super busy over the last couple of months. And I'm going to save telling you more about what I've been up to and what life's been like on the back end over here for an upcoming episode when I do my year in review episode, which I like to do every year. So in a couple of weeks, you'll get to hear more about that. But today on the podcast, I'm really excited to dive into a topic that I had really good intentions of talking about in a solo episode a number of months ago. And then I sat down to record and was like, you know what? I'm just really not feeling this topic right now. And I think I ended up recording something on the importance of rest and boundaries and that type of thing. And so today we are actually diving into the topic of resumes. So I'm really excited to share with you why I think resumes are important, how to actually create your yoga teacher resume, and so much more. This is something that I talk about in the courses that I offer, Yoga Teacher Toolbox and Yoga Business Bootcamp, and that I also teach yoga teacher trainees in the training programs that I teach in. So this is some really good content, and I hope that you guys enjoy this. Before we get into it, I wanted to paint a picture of, where I'm at right now. So it's the evening. I've put my daughter to bed. My husband's currently on a work call, and it's a little bit of a chilly evening here in Querétaro, Mexico. Believe it or not, Mexico does get cold from time to time. And so I actually turned on our space heater for the first time this year and made myself a cozy little drink. And I actually made myself a Magic Mind drink. And I know you guys have heard a little bit about Magic Mind on the show, but I just wanted to share how much I love this drink. And whenever I'm sitting down to do a solo podcast, they're always my go-to. So the drink comes in this little bottle, which you can just drink as is. But what I like to do is froth up a little bit of milk and then add the drink to it. And so it's matcha, it's adaptogens, it's a little bit caffeinated, but not too stimulating. And it's got so much good stuff in it that helps you focus. So after a long day when I'm still working and still recording podcast content and episodes, my brain feels pretty clear and whatnot. So I'll tell you more about Magic Mind later on in the episode, but wanted to just let you guys know that I'm sitting here on kind of a cold, a little bit rainy evening, tucked up in my pajamas with my favorite warm beverage. I also wanted to give a shout out to Offering Tree. Thanks to Offering Tree for sponsoring the podcast. They are a one-stop shop for all things yoga business. So if you need a website, if you're looking to offer online classes, if you're looking to schedule in-person classes, if you're doing privates or creating video on demand, courses, memberships, and so much more, they're your go-to. So you can learn more about them at offeringtree.com/MBOM, as well as get a little discount using that link. So that's offeringtree.com/MBOM. I'll also tell you more about them later on in the episode. So let's get into today's episode. So the first thing is, why on earth are we talking about resumes? Haven't we left the corporate world? Don't we get to escape the idea of resumes when we come into the yoga world? So yes and no. I really like to think about your yoga teacher resume as a resume that exists separate from any other resume you've ever made before. And with this, it gives you the ability to really showcase who you are, your personality, your brand, and all of that good stuff. But will you need a yoga teacher resume? Yeah, probably, especially if you're going to teach at studios. If you're not planning to teach at studios and you're just running your own business, then you might never get asked for it. But if you are planning to go teach at studios and meet studio owners and try to get public classes, then you're probably going to need some sort of a resume to show teachers. This was one of the first things that I was asked for when I started, applying for yoga teacher jobs, and it's so helpful to have it on hand. So I do think it's something that can be important to have and good to have. And while some people think like, oh, blah, I got to make a resume, I actually like to turn this into a bit of a fun task and a creative task. So a couple things that I want to share with you when it comes to creating a great yoga teacher resume. So the first is that I would really love to encourage you to make it stand out. So allow your business, your brand, your personality to really stand out through your yoga teacher resume. So this doesn't just have to be a white Word doc with some black letters on the page. Here's what I did. I'm proficient in X. This can really be a bit more creative, like I mentioned before. You also want to share what you can offer as a yoga teacher to the studio you want to teach at. You want to make sure your resume is unique and creative and allow your personality to come through, as I said before. And if you're comfortable with the idea, I really love the idea of including photos. For me, I always include my headshot on my resume. And, for a while when I had less yoga teaching experience, I actually included a number of other photos for my very first yoga photo shoot. And it was a fun way to just kind of make things a bit more colorful. This was before I had a brand and a business established, so I didn't really know what colors I was using. I didn't have a logo or anything like that. And so I kind of replaced all of that element of it with photos. So if you are comfortable with the idea of showing yourself on your resume, then I think that can be a really great, fun way to stand out. And then I would really recommend making it short, quick, and to the point. 1 to 2 pages is best. And this is one of the reasons that I really think it's important to have your own separate resume for teaching yoga. If you're like me, then you've been working for, a while at this point, well over 15 years. And so you probably have a lot of experience. And even with your regular resume, you probably have to go back through and say yay or nay to a lot of work experience, depending on what's relevant. And so that's a lot of what we're doing here too. It's like you should probably not have, your first corporate job on your yoga teacher resume. A yoga studio owner is interested what you can offer them in their yoga studio. And so create something that's really specific for them, as opposed to just taking all of the stuff you've done before and sending that to a studio owner, because it's going to be really hard for them to see, what's relevant and what's not for you. All right, before we get into design of a yoga teacher resume, let's just have a quick little break to hear a little bit more about OfferingTree. Hey friends, we're just taking a quick little break from the episode to talk about OfferingTree. OfferingTree is an all-in-one software for your business, one website and one place for everything. You can host your membership, on-demand library, class schedule, emails, blog posts, and take easy payments all in one spot. As a public benefit company, OfferingTree is helping you first, and they've tried their best to keep their costs as low as possible. They've bundled a ton of value into their Essentials plan with no hidden costs or fees. On top of that, OfferingTree is super, super easy to use, which is one of the main reasons that I love working with them and love recommending them for you, yoga teachers. The step-by-step process for setting up your site makes it easy to design something unique in just 30 minutes. OfferingTree's unlimited page builder gives you endless possibilities for business growth. Updating your site is simple and straightforward. Got a workshop or course that you only run once a year? Design a page for it and simply unpublish the page until you need it again. And when you reach out to support, you'll be able to talk to a real person. Their world-class support team is here to help. And on top of that, they're offering you a discount for listening to MBO. So if you are interested in checking out OfferingTree, doing a free trial, or learning more, head on over to offeringtree.com/MBO. All right, now back to the episode. All right, friends, let's dive into how to design your resume. So first of all, my number one recommendation for yoga teacher resume design is using Canva. Canva is quick, easy, and you can also do it entirely for free. Of course, they have pro and paid options, but you don't have to use any of them. So if you haven't used Canva before, it's Canva. VA, and it's just canva.com. You can go create a free profile and check out what they do. Seriously, this software is a game changer. It kind of turns the average person who's maybe not so good at graphic design into a amateur graphic designer. So I use Canva for a ton of things in my business, like different photos and imagery for YouTube, for social media. I make lots of PDFs and stuff, workbooks, that type of thing on Canva. And then of course, my resumes are on there, and my yoga teacher resume in particular. And so when you go on there, you can choose a template or you can build your own. I really like to choose a template and then just modify from there. So you can update the colors, and ideally you'll choose colors that match your brand or colors that you think you might want to represent your yoga business when you're first starting out. So like I said before, when I first started out, I didn't have a logo, I didn't have a business name, I didn't have all of that type of stuff. And so I just chose some colors that I liked and then added some photos in there. And that's a great way to get started. So you can totally do that as well. But if you do have colors, if you do have branding, if you do have a logo, if you have a name for your business, you want to match all of that to your business for your resume. And on that note, like I just mentioned, if you do have a logo, definitely put it on your resume. If you don't have a logo or a business name, just use your name as the header and then include your professional headshot up there. And you can use your headshot regardless of if you have a logo or not. And then I'd really recommend making your resume eye-catching, but also make it readable and easy to consume. This is super, super important. So we're not looking for super bright, super flashy colors that make it really hard to read. And if you're kind of unsure, if you have somebody who might be a little bit older in your life, just send them over your resume and say, hey, can you read this? Can you see this? But in general, my rule of thumb would be keep the text and font pretty simple, nothing that's too curvy, nothing too like bright yellow, bright green, bright red. Those colors are really hard to read. So try to keep, deeper colors, darker colors, keep your font to white if it works in the background, or black. Those colors will just be a little bit easier to read. And then stick with fonts that ideally match your brand, but are also just very legible, very easy to read. And then, of course, I would recommend always including contact information. So we're going to go into skills to include and whatnot on your resume in just a moment. But I feel like contact information is one of those really basic pieces of resume design that's super important that you don't want to forget. Sometimes we get so excited about, sharing who we are and the experience we have and the amazing trainings we've done. And then we forget to tell people, hey, how do you contact me? And it's totally fine if you send them an email, they know how to, contact you back, but you want to make sure that you've got an email, maybe a website, a phone number, and if you've got any social media you want people to see, like business social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc., you can link to that as well. So make sure that your contact information is on there, that it's in a place that's legible, and that people can really clearly go and find it. So like I said before, we're going to dive into skills to include, but before we do that, let's just take a quick little break to hear a little bit more about Magic Mind. All right, friends, let's talk about productivity. Productivity is one of my favorite topics, and it's also one of the things that can be most challenging for so many of us. This is why I'm super excited about my favorite new little elixir, Magic Mind. It helped me stop procrastinating and puts a little pep in my step in the mornings, which you guys know I'm a pretty new mom, so I definitely need that. There's a lot of things that I love about Magic Mind, but one of the things that I really love is how quick and easy it is to incorporate into my morning routine. It tastes great and it helps me a lot with my productivity, my focus, my concentration, and it's been able to replace my coffee. I'm able to drink less coffee and feel way better. I'm the type of person who's super sensitive to caffeine, and so being able to have something that not only makes me feel great, but also tastes great is huge. Plus, I love that it's made with matcha and that it has adaptogens like ashwagandha, lion's mane mushrooms, cordyceps, and more. I could go on for days, but I think you guys get my drift. I love this product and I'm really excited to share it with you. So if you are interested in checking out Magic Mind for yourself, becoming more productive, feeling really great, especially in the mornings and while you're working, head on over to magicmind.co/MBY. Get 40% off your subscription for the next 10 days with my code MBY. Once again, magicmind.co/MBY. And once you've tried your Magic Mind, I'd love to hear how you like it and what you think of it. All right, so now let's dive into the skills to include on your resume. So, one of the main skills or portions that you want to include on your resume is trainings that you have attended and completed. This can include a 200-hour yoga teacher training, a 300-hour yoga teacher training, as well as any continuing education or weekend workshops that you've done. So, for me, the trainings that I include on my resume are my 200-hour training, my 300-hour training, a couple of continuing education programs, including prenatal teacher training, restorative teacher training, and a really cool biomechanics workshop that I did, as well as I often include my business degree, especially if it's something pertaining to the business of yoga, because I feel like the training that I did in university to get a Bachelor of Commerce is relevant to a lot of what I do. That's just me, and you can decide if you have a degree or maybe additional training that you want to include. You could also include CPR training if you're CPR certified. That can be a really awesome thing to add to your resume. The next thing you want to include is any teaching experience that you have. So this will include studio experience, so any studios that you've worked at, as well as any workshops, retreats, private specialty programs that you've run over the years. So for me, on my resume, I include my teaching experience, the main studios that I've taught at over the years, particularly the ones that I've had regular classes at and taught at for a significant period of time. And then I also include the private offerings that I've done. So for me, in my yoga teaching, I haven't done a lot of workshops or registered programs or anything like that. I've done that more on the business side of things, but not necessarily with my yoga teaching. But I have run, an international retreat and stuff like that. So that's something that I could totally add to my resume as well. So that gives you a pretty good little list of things to include. And then the other additional experience that you can include would be other experience that you have in the yoga industry. So this might include working at a yoga clothing store. Like say I worked at Lululemon for a while. That's something that I could add to my resume. I have quite a bit of experience right now, so it's not something that feels super relevant, but when I first started, it did feel like something that was relevant. And then you can also include things like if you've ever done check-in at a yoga studio, that would be a great thing to add. If you've ever done studio management or worked with studios or yoga teachers, in any capacity, you could add that. So I have studio experience with 2 specific studios, one doing teaching and yoga studio management, and then the other one doing, website design and digital marketing. So those are things that live on my resume that feel very relevant. They just demonstrate, who I am and what I have to offer and that type of thing. And then the last thing that you can include under your skills is any other additional experience you have that is relevant to getting a job as a yoga teacher. So on my resume, I include that I run this podcast. I include that I've created some courses. I have one that's a yoga for men program, and then also a yoga for beginners course. And then I also have a YouTube channel. So all of that is stuff that I include on my resume. And then other things that I've seen other yoga teachers include are things like, oh, I have a degree in counseling and I've worked as a counselor. I'm going to include that on there because the way that I counsel also impacts the way that I teach yoga, and I'm blending the two of them. Also, you could include something like if you had a background in Ayurveda, if you had an Ayurveda training, nutrition, wellness, fitness, personal training, etc. That's all the type of work experience that could be relevant to you as a yoga teacher. So things that demonstrate your understanding of the industry, that demonstrate your ability to stand up in front of a room of people and lead them, to create sequences, etc., etc. I know one yoga teacher trainee that I taught, she was a bar instructor at one of the bigger bar companies in, I think, Canada or maybe the US. And so she included that on her resume. So that can be something that's relevant. I also had somebody else who was a spin instructor, and then other people have been personal trainers. So those are all different things that can be relevant. And so, okay, now we've got our name at the top, we've got our business name or a little bit about us, we've got our headshot, we've got our contact information. Now we've included our skills, so our experience, our education, that type of thing. So what else do you want to include on your resume? So one thing that I would really recommend is that you include a short form of your bio. So everyone should have a bio. This is something that you can include on your website. You can have it on your Instagram profile, and you're certainly going to be asked for this if you're going to be teaching at yoga studios. So I definitely recommend having a bio, and it would be great if you could include a little about me section on your resume. So on my resume, near the top on the left, which is below my headshot, I have just a couple of sentences about myself. I talk about how I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, how I'm passionate about teaching a more functional version of Vinyasa flow that is based around, breath work, and how my aim as a yoga teacher is to just invite people to have an experience, whether that experience is to sweat, to breathe, to move, to release tension or energy. People can feel that. And so I've got a little bit about myself, my background, and what my kind of teaching methodology or the way in which I teach on my resume. And I think that this is a really key part of the resume because it is something that will allow you to express who you are, share who you are, and set yourself apart from somebody else. So say myself and somebody else who did the exact same training and had the exact same experience as me created a resume. The things that make us different are things like the design that we choose, the photos we choose, the layout we choose, the way we choose to present our information, and then hugely is, our about section. A couple sentences describing who we are, how we teach, what our beliefs around teaching are, maybe a little bit about your teaching story. So I'm hoping that you guys have a bio already written and you have something to pull from. On my website, I really like to have my bio in third person. When I send a bio to a yoga studio, when I'm working there, I send it in third person. But when I put it on my resume, I like to have it in first person. So it's like, hey, I'm Amanda. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher. Here's who I am and what I'm all about. If you guys don't have a bio and you are keen to learn a little bit more about that, definitely let me know. That could certainly be another little solo episode that we could do. All right, you guys, we have one more section to talk about, and that's tips to set yourself apart with your resume. But before we get there, I just want to share a little bit from my friends over at Coach Pals. Coach Pals is a new partnership and a new company that I've been doing some work with. It's been really fun to create a profile over there, and I just recently released a channel that's called Let's Talk Podcasting. So I would love if you guys joined Coach Pals and checked out the channel that I created. Maybe come over, tell me who you are, what you like about podcasts, what your favorite podcasts are, etc., etc. All right, let's hear a little bit more about Coach Pals, and then we'll be back to talk a little bit more about resumes. Hey, yoga teachers, we're just taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about Coach Pals. Coach Pals is a wellness professional network. And why would we be interested in networking? Well, networking adds an increasing visibility to your wellness business. You're not only connecting to people in your network, but with professionals and clients in their network too. This will naturally materialize on amazing opportunities, from referrals, partnerships, collaboration, and job offers to new clients and requests for your services or products. Referrals work both ways. It's also extremely helpful to have a network of professionals you trust for your own clients when they need a provider for a service that you don't offer. This saves them time and energy and makes you look savvy. So, why am I telling you this? Because Coach Pals does all of this, and they do it for people in the wellness industry like us yoga teachers. I've already created my profile on Coach Pals, and I'm super excited to start seeing more and more yoga teachers over there. So if you'd like to join me over at Coach Pals, head on over to coachpals.com to get started today. You can use the code MBOMPALS to get 3 months free off your professional membership. Once you're there and you've got your profile started, make sure you go and connect with me. I'm Amanda Kingsmith. Once again, coachpals.com. All right, now back to the episode. All right, so we've dove into a lot of things so far. We've talked about what makes a great yoga teacher resume, why you need one, a couple of tips there. We've talked about yoga teacher resume design. We've gone through the different skills and aspects to include on your resume. And now I want to talk about a few things that can set yourself apart. So this is a common tip that's talked about kind of in the business industry, but something that you can do is really gear your resume to the studio you're applying to. So show that you know something about them. So say you're looking at a couple of different studios. Is there some way that you can change the about section, or maybe add a couple of little notes here and there, or maybe change a photo or update, teaching experience, change your experience up, change the experience you highlight based on the studio that you're applying to. If you're kind of like, hey, I don't have that much experience and, my bio is pretty standard, I don't really know how to use this tip, maybe you could do something with the email that you send to them. Maybe you can send them a more personalized version of the email. Let them know what you like about the studio. If you've stopped by the studio before, you've met the studio owner, maybe you can write a little bit about that, what you liked about the space. And this is actually a little pro tip that I have for getting jobs at studios. I definitely recommend you guys go check them out, go meet the people to the best of your ability, and that type of thing. So another thing you could do to set yourself apart is add testimonials from students that you've taught. And this is really great if, say, you're kind of getting to the point where you need a 2-page resume, but maybe you don't have enough experience to kind of fill the whole thing. Instead of having a little bit of an empty resume or empty gaps, could you get some testimonials from people that you've taught and add that to your resume? And a little pro tip with this as well is that anytime you teach a student that you connect with, so say somebody that you talk to after class, or somebody that you've taught a private lesson to, or somebody that comes to your classes quite a bit and they enjoy them, could you get a little written testimonial with permission to use? Because this is something that's so great for social media. It's so great to add this stuff to a website. And then, of course, you can reuse it for a resume like we're talking about here today. So that can be super helpful. Another pro tip or tip to set yourself apart is to always send your resume as a PDF. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. I think working for yoga studios for so long, I've just seen so many different iterations and variations of yoga teacher applications and yoga teacher resumes come through. And whenever people just send a Word document, I just really dislike it. I mean, one, people can edit your stuff then, which is just a huge privacy issue for me. You don't want people being able to edit your documents. And then also, if you are creating something with a little more design elements, like different size fonts or colors or photos, if it's not in PDF form and somebody opens it in some sort of document form, it's really, really common and quite probable that the different elements are going to move around and it's not going to look the way that you want it to. And so I would just really recommend sending your resume as a PDF. Something that's really cool about Canva is that when you go to download it, you can choose how you download it. So you can download it as like a JPEG file or a PNG file or as a PDF. And if you are getting it printed, you can actually do like PDF to print, which is kind of cool. So it's got the different edges for cutting, et cetera, et cetera. For me, I just download it as a normal PDF, and then it's really easy to attach to emails as I'm sending out to yoga teachers and applying for yoga teacher jobs. I would also recommend that you send a professionally written email that you've done spelling and grammar checks for with your resume. This is huge. At these studios I've worked with, we've received so many applications that are just like, hi, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm looking for a job. Do you have one? It's like, what is that? That's not professional. Who taught this person how to write an email? And then also things like, sending messages from your phone where it's like, do you, the letter U, have a job for me? It's like, no, if you can't take the time to write a professional email and just make sure that you've got your spelling and grammar checked over, then we probably don't have a job for you. So I would definitely recommend that you put together a nicely crafted email. Send an email, talking about why you're applying at the studio, what you're interested in, a little bit about yourself. Let them know that you've attached a resume to the the email and then send it off. And then I would definitely recommend send all emails from a professional email address, something like first name, last name at gmail.com. I think all of us at some point have had those kind of like cringy Hotmail addresses. Mine was dancingHotDogs at hotmail.com. I also had, I think it was like MandaPanda14 for a while. You know, those emails were fine when I was in like middle school, maybe high school, but they're just not appropriate at this point in life and at this point with what I'm trying to do, you know? So I have an email that is akingsmith@gmail.com. I also have a version of like Amanda, my middle name, kingsmith@gmail.com, you know, amanda.kingsmith@gmail.com. So lots of different iterations you can do. And if you're planning to do say you have a name, like, so I have info@mbomyoga.com, but I could also do like mbomyoga@gmail.com or mbyompodcast@gmail.com. Those would be, you know, great professional email addresses. So if you have a business name, you can get an email for that. Or you could also just do something like amandakingsmithyoga@gmail.com. So definitely, you know, go ahead, create an email for that, and then make sure that you check that email. So if you create an email to send out your yoga teacher resume to apply for yoga teacher jobs, make sure that you have access to that email very easily on your phone or computer, or wherever you are often working from. And yeah, make sure that you are actually checking that, because how unfortunate would it be to get invited to do a teaching demo or have an interview and then, you know, people can't get a hold of you. And then my last pro tip to set yourself apart is to send a teaching demo video with your resume. So we've done, you know, various episodes talking about teaching demos. So you guys have heard about that before, but I have lots of resources on how to prep your teaching demo. And something that I think can be really awesome, especially with the current state of the world and all the changes that have happened with the pandemic over the last couple of years, is to actually make a video of this. You can get ahead of the curve by just allowing studio owners to see, you know, what you're all about and that type of thing. So if you do have that, either attach the video or include a link to YouTube or something like that if your video is big. So you've kind of put together this nice little package for where you're applying and that type of thing. So those are all of my tips when it comes to resumes. So hopefully this has been something that has been helpful for you. I do have lots of different resources on resumes. I've got lots of example resumes, all that type of thing. So if that's something that you're interested in or you need, or you want to talk about it further, definitely feel free to reach out. But just to recap, resumes are still important. Resumes haven't died, but in the yoga teacher world, you can make them a little bit more fun and interesting. So use your brand colors, use photos, include a headshot, make sure you've got your name at the top of the resume, include your contact information, make sure you've got your education and experience, as well as a little bit of an about me section or a mini bio, and then also include any relevant information, things that could be interesting or cool for somebody to learn about you. Include that on your resume, and then include any links to social media, websites, etc., so that people can check out what you're all about. Save your resume as a PDF once you've got it finished. So always check for spelling and grammar, make sure it looks good, and make sure the colors are representative of you and your brand, and then send that PDF off to studio owners. And as you send that, make sure you send a nice professional email that's well written from a professional email address, and maybe include your teaching demo. So there's the TLDR for anyone who didn't want to listen to the whole thing. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I hope that it's been informative information. And of course, make sure that you reach out if you have any questions or comments or anything like that. A huge thank you to Offering Tree, Magic Mind, and Coach Pals for being a part of this episode. You guys, please go give them some love. They're all amazing companies. Now, with all the pauses that I've taken throughout this episode to regroup and whatnot, I'm finished my little matcha latte and I am ready to call it a night. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm so grateful that you are here listening to the show. Thank you for all the love, and I will see you next week. All right, bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomeyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomeyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.